In this section, we will explain the interconnection between the different and the similar network functions, whether they are in the radio access network, the control plane, or even in user plane. There are two ways to represent the interconnection between the different and similar network functions in the 5G. The first method is a service-based representation in which one network function, for example the AMF, within the control plane is allowing other network functions which have been authorized to access its services. This representation also includes point-to-point reference points between the network functions where necessary. The service-based architecture means a system architecture in which the system functionality is achieved by a set of network functions providing services to other network functions which are authorized to access those services. As you can see in the highlighted red box, the 5G core control plane has a bus and a service-based interface reachable by the individual functions. This creates the so-called service-based architecture or the SPA. And in the service-based architecture, one control plane network function, for example the SMF, is allowing any other authorized network function to access its services. The network functions within the 5G core control plane shall only use the service-based interface for their interaction. So, if we have any communication with AMF node, for example, so the other core network control plane functions which are accessing the AMF function will use an interface called NAMF. And for SMF, we will have the same terminology for naming. We will have the interface NSMF and so on. So you should note that the service-based architecture or the SPA is explaining the roles played by the different network functions based on their services. For the service-based interfaces, we can see that the name of the interface connecting any network function in the 5G core control plane is called N, then followed by the name of the network function. For example, we have NAMF is a service-based interface connecting the network functions of the control plane to AMF. We have NSMF is a service-based interface exhibited by SMF. We have NNEF is a service-based interface connecting the different network functions of the control plane to the NEF, and so on. So any network function in the control plane of the 5G, for example the SMF, will allow any other authorized network function to access it through this service-based interface using HTTP, of course. On the other hand, there is another way for defining the interconnection between network functions, which is a reference point representation. And this way is focusing on the interactions between pairs of network functions defined by point-to-point reference point between any two network functions, for example, the SMF and the BCF. So between the BCF and SMF, we have N7, and SMF and UDM, we have N10. This kind of representation is used when some interactions exist between any two network functions. I will list all the reference points in the next slides for our reference so that you can have knowledge of those names and be familiar with them, and we will see after what are the messages which are transferred over the different interfaces or reference points. But before we see the list of the reference point names, we need to check what is the relation between service-based interfaces and reference points. So first, and as explained, you need to know that The service-based interface and reference points are two different ways to model the interaction between two different and similar network elements. A reference point is a conceptual point. It's a conjunction of two non-overlapping functional groups, and also it can be replaced by one service-based interface like in graph on the right, or it can be replaced by two service-based interfaces which provide equivalent function. You can also notice that the reference points exist between two specific network functions, even if the functionality is equal on two reference points. For example, it can be a reference point between two UBFs or two SMFs. And here, a list of the references that you can try to visit in case you need to get more information and more details about the different topics that we are discussing throughout the course.